Hey, this is LD.
This is Devion.
And this is Chech. You're listening to The Buddy Pass, where three friends who met in China share travel stories and talk to Black people who are thriving in unconventional places.
And today we have a very special guest,
Ooh, ooh.
the one and only Keith. What's going on, Keith?
Hey.
How you doing, man? Say hi to the people.
I'm in the building. What's up, baby? I am so happy to be on this podcast. Y'all, we about to tear it up. Oh, my goodness. Let's get
Always
it,
love
baby.
Keith. Keith is always so enthusiastic. It's crazy.
Yes, baby.
We gotta let people know who Keith is. And we're just like,
please let them know. We
Who
out
is
here
Keith?
running China. We are doing it. Come on in. Come on. I'm ready for it, baby.
This
Come
is
on.
Keith Bartlett, first of
Hello.
all. And Keith, you are an entrepreneur and branding visionary from Detroit, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you've been living in China, first in Beijing and now Shenzhen for the past 7-8 years.
Yes, I have. Yep.
So first off, like what brought you to China? Like
Yeah.
7-8 years is a long time, bro.
Yes. So that's a great question because, I mean, basically, obviously, you guys know that I'm from Detroit, right? So, I grew up pretty much in the gutter. And at the beginning, I always kind of, as a Black guy, I was always different, from a lot of other people in terms of like what I actually wanted to achieve quite young. And yeah, from there, I just knew that at 18 years old, I wanted to live a life abroad. I studied international relations at Michigan State. All my state people go green. And from there, it really just provided me an opportunity to kind of like see things different when I actually stepped inside of China, like inside of it itself. But again, I think it goes back to, the very beginning, in terms of what you wanted out of life, what type of life that you wanted to set up. And I think that my friends, had a lot to do with potentially me making my decision because unfortunately I wasn't around the right crew and I noticed that wasn't a space for me. So yeah, I mean that really was the kind of the beginning of the kickoff for me to step outside of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And then go out there. I'll just give you a real quick personal story, which really kind of hit a little bit home for me. I went to, again, I grew up in Detroit, but when I was in the 10th grade, I actually went to an all white school, and I had a lot of my Black friends. I had a lot of my white. Okay, so I wrestled in high school, and a lot of my Black friends would actually be like, "Bro, why are you wrestling? Like, we don't do that." Yeah. And it was crazy because like, I'm a smaller guy, but I'm a kind of a stockier guy. And, and my, the coaches, they were like, yo, we really want you to wrestle because we think you got real potential. Like, we want you to be on a team. Yeah. So my 10th grade year, I kept like shooting them down and like, man, you don't need to wrestle, man. You need to play ball. You need to rap and all that. I'm like, yeah, but I came from the hood. I know where that life leads at some point for some people. So yeah, I tried out wrestling, and I actually ended up being really good, going to state, like basically becoming one of the best lightweight wrestlers in Michigan.
Oh my God.
And that taught me from the very beginning, brother, you got to make your own decisions, my dude. Even though you surrounded by your folk and you love all your people. Yeah. There's just some times where you got to like make some different steps in life. So anyway, that was kind of the seed that was planted early on for me that kind of, I knew at that point, like whatever decisions that I wanted to make, I had to make sure that I was going to make those decisions and not be influenced by anyone.
Yeah. That, so what makes me think is, but why China? Like, China is not, if we think about ourselves and why we ended up in China and other people who end up in China, it's usually like a kind of roundabout story of how you end up on that side of the world.
Like, China's so far away. So
like in your international relations class, did y'all like review China or learn about Mao and it was like, oh, that's the place I gotta go to.
I gotta go.
Yes.
I'm gonna go to a place with no Black people, supposedly.
Yeah, that's essentially what it was. I'm getting away from everybody, man.
Get away from these fools. Y'all doubted me.
That's hilarious. That is too funny. No, so that's a great question. Yeah, let me touch on that. So essentially what happened for me, like when I hit state, I always had obviously a little bit of an interest in like Chinese culture, right? But it really was just like straight out of Hong Kong, like Kung Fu and all that. But it wasn't really enough to actually pull me and want to live in China. Honestly, again, I going back to my college years, people always said that China was the future, right? And I was like, you know what? All right, let me take a class and see what they're talking about. And when I took my first class in Chinese, I was like, okay, this is definitely not for me. I mean, like we're not even writing letters or writing just like strokes. Like this does, it doesn't make. How am I supposed to be able to read this? Like this is ridiculous. Like I'm out of here. But the truth, what actually happened to me is that I got caught because I stayed in that. Again, this was the beginning of the semester for university, so I actually got caught. I was stuck in the class. I could not leave unless I would have to pay money. Like in the university, you can actually there's a grace period, right? If you want to switch your class, you can like switch to another class or something like that. Right. But I actually got caught and I got stuck in that class. So because I got stuck and I needed the credit hours, I stuck it out. And then after like my third or fourth week, I actually started like really understanding the character strokes and I was able to pronounce the words. And it just dawned on me that I'm reading like Scribble Scrabble and I understand it. And I was like, yo, this is something. So it was really nice, like a nice little kind of self-discovery for myself because I've never, at that point in life, I never thought I could actually like do something. And then I'm a black guy speaking Chinese. What? From Detroit? Come on, baby. Like that. I don't, it's very, very rare now, but like looking back, it all started from language for me. That's really how it developed. From there, I then took a study abroad program with Michigan State. I actually ended up in Harbin, which is the northern part of China.
I've heard it's dope. I haven't been there.
Yeah.
It's dope, man.
Yep. I did a summer program there. And I spent maybe 4 weeks there. And it was 4 hours a day, super hard, language intensive course. Like it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. But one thing that I really want to just touch on, my last point, basically about like coming on over, is that after I did that 4-month course, when I was leaving, there was a Chinese girl. She came up to me and she was like, "Hey, how are you? Where are you from? Blah 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 blah. Like, oh, you seem really cool and oh, you're kind of cute. Da da da." And I'm like, "What?" And then it turned out that everything that she was speaking in Chinese to me, and I could actually understand the entire conversation. And like that's when I knew. I was like, all right, this may be something. This may be something I want to be a part of, because it was like being able to, like, when you study so hard a language, but when you actually have that moment where you can understand someone in a totally different language, like, and have a fluid conversation for at least half an hour. That's when I was like, all right, man, this is definitely something that I want to explore. So that's how it started for me.
That's what's up, man. So when you first moved to China after being from Detroit, what was like the first thing that like threw you off? You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, I'm not in Detroit anymore. Like,
well, let me tell you. I love that. Let me tell you.
Oh gosh.
Okay, well, first off, I got to take it back to home base. When I was zipping up my luggage to come to China, because I was on that parade, like, yeah, I'm going to China. Boy, that night before, and I'm zipping up my luggage, I'm like, wait a minute, brother. Like, what are you doing? Like, I started actually unzipping it back. I'm like, this is not smart, man. What are you doing? But no, when I first touched down to China, I kid you not, guys, I tell this story all the time. Anyone who's listening, listen up now. When I first touched down in China, we touched down in Harbin, I get out the airport, right? When we are in we just get past customs, we're waiting on our luggage. I kid you not, a Chinese woman walks up to me, grabs my hand, pulls out my arm, right? She's holding my hand. She rubs her hand on my skin, looks at her hand and says, "Oh, 真的吗？哎呀，what？哎呀，哇，你看，没有黑色的，这个不是说没有黑。Basically, what that means is that there's no black on my hand. It doesn't come off. And she was basically going back to her family, like, oh my gosh, they're really, really black people, right? So they're like, it's a real thing. It's not fake, right? It's a real movement out there. So That was one thing, and then at that same time, like when she did that, I had a girl right next to me. We were two blacks on this study abroad program. The other girl, she had zillions in her hair. So the other woman would be trying to like, touch her hair, hold her hair, because again, they had never seen like black hair like that, like zillions, like the braids. Yeah, they've never seen it. So what
are zillions? Hold up.
Okay.
Oh.
I mean, well, I don't know how y'all call them.
Go back to the Urban Dictionary right now. I don't know what it is.
In Detroit, we call them, so they're braids, but zillions essentially are them. The really, really, really skinny braids, but it's a lot of them on the hair.
Oh, and so they were touching her hair.
We call them zillions.
They were touching her hair, trying to put on her zillion.
Local slang. Okay, those are called micro braids. Now I don't feel so bad.
We're gonna let that slide. We're gonna let that one slide.
So they were touching her hair, trying to pull on her.
Yeah, they were basically, it was a woman, and a black girl in hair, like touching her hair, hey, but in that space, we were. That's another thing I also want to touch on, is that when you come out to expect something different, you want to just be open to what's gonna happen. Obviously we all have limits and boundaries, but we both came out there with the experience, and I didn't also want to like react in the black way. You know what I mean? In certain instances, I don't want to necessarily pull out that keep that stereotype going about us. So we let her do her thing, and she was really, really surprised. And it was just that was the wake up moment for me, that I was like, yo, I'm in a whole nother world, baby. Like this Detroit kid, like this is different.
Wait, you let her, she let her like mess with her hair?
Yeah, man. We can get into some hair stories right now. It would be very interesting, but I'll keep it here. But yes, we just let her do her. Again, she's an older woman, right? She's like, she look like 80, 85 years old, so she's causing us no harm. So yeah, we let her do her thing, and no, that was for me and the black girl. That was quite an experience for us, because again, that also taught us about that, there's not a lot of us out here, really, and that's something I would love to touch on too.
That makes me have a question, because you just made a statement about, I didn't want to have a like quote unquote black reaction, and what was funny is, on my end, I feel like I had a black reaction. I was like, hold up.
Yeah. When they touched your hair?
Well, no. I had a reaction to that statement of like, I didn't want to be quote unquote.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so, and which I imagine, like, what you were saying is that you didn't want to, like, quote unquote, get loud, or you didn't want to, quote unquote, like, make a scene, right? As a stereotype with black people. So my question for you is, in your experience over these years in China, where do you think stereotypes of blackness are coming from? Because if you're interacting with a woman who's touching your skin and saying, oh my gosh, there's no black on my hand, she still has not had really any kind of interaction with black people. So where do you think those stereotypes are actually rooted in?
Let's just keep it real. Do you think it's racist or not? Like, we've had long conversations about this.
That's good. That's good.
Are you willing to hit an old lady? That's what I'm saying. So, like, where's the line when it comes to, like, slapping old women? Because I feel... I mean, we just need to know where you stand before this conversation can proceed.
No, please, let's let it loose, baby. Because let's let it loose. So for me, okay,
go ahead.
I've been in China for 7 years, right? So I speak the language. I have lived with Chinese people. I have taught Chinese kids. I have been in the education system on both fronts, from teaching kids as well as in government, basically. I've been on all fronts. So I've got a really, really clear perspective, in my opinion, about who and what China is. All right. To the best that I can understand it. Do I believe China is a racist place? No, not at all. Do I believe that there are some people who just don't rock with black people? Yes. But then do we also say that that's racism? I don't know. I think that there's a huge lack of understanding, in my opinion. And I think that because black people are really on all fronts, because we're faced with racism at almost every corner, of the world, essentially, it's very easy for us to just say China is a racist place. I don't believe because I mean, I've had experiences where, again, going back to my story in Harbin, right, where I've gotten like the hospitality from Chinese people. I've traveled to a lot of different countries, but Chinese people, I mean, are quite different, especially in the village. I mean, I've had people, I would, one quick story, I had a language partner, and we're going back and forth, and he did invite me to his house. I meet his parents, they're cooking and we're having a good time. They actually at one point put out a video camera because they wanted me to teach this guy how to get girls because, he was like a little awkward kid. This is, yeah.
Wait, what?
Yes, man. I've had some
priorities are
experiences,
all
man.
off.
I've had some experiences, man, but I'm not saying it's a village. It's a smaller town in Harbin. It's not a village, but it's a smaller town compared to like a Beijing or a Shanghai, right? Or Shenzhen. It's a smaller town. Yeah. So I've had experiences like
1
that.
million people, which is very different.
Yeah, right, right. In China.
Right. Only 1 million.
Right. Yeah, right. But no, I mean, anyway, yeah, just finishing up that point, like, they, after that day, they were always like, they were actually trying to kick out their son and say, look, this is your room. You're super cool. Like, we want you to stay here. Whenever you come back to Harbin, like, this is your spot. And I had just met them like one day. I mean, the mom was actually already preparing me. Like, she was pulling clothes out of the drawer and like, okay, you can just stay here. I'm like, what's going on? But like, yeah, it was just, and this was the first day. The first days, so I was like, man, Chinese people are like legit, she was bringing me like, home cooked meals to the university, you know what I mean? Like, so this was my kind of, it was, that's what I'm saying. Like in certain parts, again, this is 7 years ago. So I don't know, I don't know about now, but like, when I first stepped, I had nothing but love, man. They gave me nothing but love. So yeah, I mean, if I've experienced racism, my first racist experience ever was actually not by a Chinese person and even not in the States, like a real racist experience directly towards me. It was in Beijing by a Russian woman. Right?
Oh.
Like, yeah. I have never experienced racism in my life. And essentially what happened, I don't know if you guys know the silk market, right? I mean, if you guys know Beijing, you know the silk market, right? So long story short, essentially it was me and my white roommate. She, just a girl who had just came over, and we were at the time, we were just working for this internship or whatever together. And we were at the silk market, and this Russian lady came over to ask my white friend. She was like, hey, she couldn't really speak English. She was like, hey, I just want to know like where the subway exit is, and because it's obvious it's within like that downstairs, that space. So my white friend who had just came, she didn't know. She had just came to Beijing. So she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. So I stepped in and I was like, hey, let me actually help you out because I've been here a little bit long. I go to point my finger towards the direction of the subway. And then as I'm pointing my finger, she just starts screaming like, whoa, oh my God, And then when she screamed, I screamed because I'm looking around like, what is it? Like, is it a spider on me? Like, I'm looking around like, God, geez, please, woman, tell me, baby, please, what you looking at? Like somebody about to rob me, like, what's good, And I'm looking around and I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And then as she's backing away, she's just staring at me, and then she's just shaking her head, and she walks away and turns. And what do? I'm looking around like, what is she looking at? And then that point, it settled.
That's when dawned
right there.
Yeah.
It settled that, wow, man, I can't believe I just experienced this. And it's weird, I guess. You see the racism on TV, right? You see all of, the whatever's going on, in the politics and all that. But when it really hits you for your first time, especially abroad, whoa, it hits a little different.
Dude, it was funny, man. I was in Thailand and in Phuket and was out on the beach, and it was this Russian woman out on the beach, and her and I sparked up a conversation, and she legitimately told me, she was like, your skin is so beautiful. Like I've never seen, I've never seen dark skin like this. And then, we're in Thailand, they're brown skinned people, but she was just so fascinated with like my dark skin. Like she reached out and like started rubbing it and things like that. And, for me, I didn't react like very aggressively because she wasn't trying to hurt me or anything. It was very much like she's curious. She just wants to touch her, right? Like a Chinese person. And I think me and Chet was talking about this, talking to Black people who have sort of lived in that space. Because she's learned that there were a lot of Black people that have sort of migrated to Russia at some time in history. So that's a conversation and a topic that we're very excited about. Exploring,
all the Black Soviets like that.
Yeah, it's crazy, yo.
I think I would never even think that there would be so many Black people living in Russia. That never even occurred to me.
Yeah, man, it's really interesting that when you dig deep and you see how far Black people have gone out into the world and like the places and the corners of the world that we've actually touched, and over time that those stories have just sort of fell to the side and been replaced with white stories or just whitewashed in general. But people that have done the work have discovered that we have touched places that no one has had ever considered that we'd be. Right. So I'm very much excited about exploring those stories and those experiences and learning about them on a deeper level. Yeah. But man, like Keith, bro, and I'm gonna be real with you. When I first moved to Beijing, man, there were a few people that I became aware of like very early on. LD was one of them. Although I wasn't vibing with LD early on.
Wait, what?
I think I shared that with all.
Hold up.
That's always out in the Black group.
Like, who didn't get shared this? LD. This is news to me. Like what?
I said was always your friend everywhere.
Do what?
Wait, the one reason I said I didn't vibe with them early on is because I was one of those Black people, and to some degree I still am, who that Black people should go back, like all Black people should find their way back to Africa.
Oh
like,
my God, I can't.
Get back to the motherland. Like,
I cannot.
I saw him.
I'm still waiting to see what this has to do with me.
When I shared this group, right? And he responded to the conversation. He was like, I actually don't think that's like logistically, and I don't think that's feasible. I like, what language will we speak? What country will we move to? And I was like, man, why you shitting on like the movement? Like,
okay, hold on. So we're just gonna hold on. Okay, this is gonna be like a thing. So, dear listener, when I said that, let me because I need to clear this up right now because this is how it's gonna end. I was saying that I don't think that it would be that feasible if everybody just went to an African country, just go back to Africa. Because A, there are people that are already there. So how would we look if we just went over to another place and just took it over and be like, yeah, we Black now, like we home. We tried that. That was Liberia. Didn't work out so well.
Yeah, it didn't work out.
It didn't work out too well. Secondly, yes, logistically, how would that work? Like, there's like a quarter of, I think 20% of us at this point are like in poverty, like Black America. You see what I'm saying? Like, these people like don't have the funds, they don't have the education. There's a lot of us that aren't in a position to just pick up and just go. You know what I'm saying? And so you would have to train a lot of people who already don't have the education funding to take care of themselves now, and now you send them to a whole other country. That might not be the best move.
And to be like, when I looked at it from that perspective, my position evolved. So I decided to look at it. So I do think
put that on record for right now, just so we know where everybody stands.
It evolved, but I brought this up to say that there are very few people that I was like, you know what, sort of very much inspired by, respected. Like I say, LD was one of those. Keith, you were one of those people like that I met early on or became aware of early on, bro. To be real with you, speak 100. Not only were you out there living, bro, like you were doing your thing. You know what I'm saying? Like taking advantage of the opportunity. Like, we touched on this earlier. You're an entrepreneur, bro. What does it look like? Like, first of all, what are you doing? What entrepreneurial, endeavors are you embarking on in China? And like, what does it look like for a Black person to be an entrepreneur in China?
Can I say I'm a little bit mad that I wasn't on this list?
Well, I didn't need you.
Well, we know. First of all, we know why. We know why you are not a part
Yeah.
of these conversations.
We not gonna touch on that.
But yeah, that's for another day. That's for another podcast. We ain't gonna get into that.
I'm just saying. I was living my life too. I was out there.
Oh, we know.
We'll touch on that later. But yeah, bro, Keith, man, really like, share your story, bro.
Yeah. I mean, like I said at the very beginning, I wanted to make sure that I could actually create a life for myself, right, on all fronts, and I wanted to do that abroad. Entrepreneurship is lonely. It's a very, very lonely and difficult life if you choose this route, and then if you add being in China or just being abroad on top of that, it makes it 100%, 100 more times more difficult. So. That's just one thing that I do want to get out there is that, like, you got a lot of people, oh, I'm an entrepreneur here, I'm an entrepreneur there. But like, when you really, really want to dive deep, I think entrepreneur is a beautiful thing as well, because it really teaches you about who you are, what you truly are passionate in, and really also kind of taking a more like just a deeper insight and look into who yourself. And I'm just turned 30, and I for this year, for me, I really wanted to really just focus on me, zoning out and then and finding that peace with myself and saying, Keith, what is it that you actually want to do, and what do you want to leave off into the world? I'm a brand consultant, right? So I'm always consulting for a lot of different, like, Chinese people or a lot of, companies or like, other visionaries and things like that. So, I just got off a call actually just yesterday with a client of mine, and essentially what she wants to do is she wants to start our TV show. But a lot of issue with that in China is that a lot of times, doing work in China, a lot of things are copied, like it's just, oh, I see this idea, let me copy this idea, or let me kind of sort of do it like that. And I think even what I'm building right now, everything is just really meant to get back to like the humanness, because I do think that, like, right now technology is kind of taking a lot of that away from us. And then when you're looking at it from a branding perspective, I really, again, I think I'm just pushing that point a lot, because if you really decide to do that, you really need to understand where that is coming from and really dive deep and say, okay, this is the message that I want to send off. So anyway, that's just my piece on entrepreneurship. I could go into detail about, the first thing you need to do is this and all of that, but I mean, I've been 7 years in China. I've been 7 years being an entrepreneur, essentially. I mean, obviously for me, my entrepreneurship started, it really, actually, a lot of people don't notice about me because I don't really talk about this too much, but I found my confidence in China. I found my confidence. I mean, yeah, in the wrestling, I know I had to make a decision in terms of the life that I wanted to live, but my confidence really came when I took my first internship with the Chinese Ministry of Education. This was like an internship of a lifetime because I'm essentially working for the Chinese government. I had the opportunity to work for kind of a sub company under the government. And that company that I started interning at, they essentially, I'll try to explain it to us quite quick and not too hard to understand. But essentially at that time, China was the largest country that was sending over international students from all abroad, like 500,000 kids a year. And that company, they managed all of the agents. Okay, so an agent, for an example, if you're a Chinese student, it's very normal for you to go to an agent to find you a university abroad. Like, that's kind of the normal system. The agencies, unfortunately, they write all like your, how you get into school. You know what I mean? Like, they pretty much take care of everything. They give you essays and all of that. They take care of everything. So that was a normal way that Chinese students went through that. Like, that's kind of their normal way of doing that when they wanted to go abroad. So this company that I worked for, we were the only company that had the power to standardize and to basically have all of them in one network within our company. So they had to have dealings with us if they wanted to actually operate this business. My first week in the internship, I realized the immense power that these people had, but they had no idea how to make money. This company was now just becoming a privatized company. So it was basically becoming like the decentralized from the government, but they had to figure out how to make money. And that company brought me in, and they're like, "Hey, Keith, so you're a marketer, so." And I'm like, "All right, so what do you want me to do?" And they're like, "Well, we'll market. You're from the States." And I'm like, "Well, but what do you actually want me to do? Like, how do we actually get started? And give me some statistics and stuff." And literally, they looked at that because I was just from America. Just because I was from America, they was like, "You the American, figure out how to do it." I'm like, "What? This is crazy." So from that point, I had to figure out how to build basically nothing, something out of nothing.
Yeah.
And that, by doing that, what happened was I was put on a task of like creating PPTs. I told my superior at the time, I'm not going to be here for like 4 months creating PPTs. Like, they're, "Oh, tell us about America. What is the best foods in America?" I'm like, "I'm not here for that. Like, I'm here to actually like learn and like do real business so I can take this back to the States. I just paid for this. You know what I mean? I just paid for this internship. Come on now." So
for our listeners, a PPT is a PowerPoint, but in China we all call them PPTs.
PPTs.
Yeah.
I love everything is an acronym in China. I love it.
Yeah.
It's like
actually, it's very true.
I had someone tell me, what was it? Download the APP. The what?
Exactly.
The APP. You mean the app?
Yeah, it's so true.
Wait, I don't even know people in the States said PowerPoint. I just always said PPT.
Really?
Yeah, me too.
Really? Yeah.
You lived in China for so long, you can't remember the difference.
I don't even remember the difference.
You don't even remember the difference.
No.
And so you, Keith, you are like, okay, I don't want to just be making PPTs for people.
Yeah. So that's really, and I had the opportunity. I said, "You know what, this will be my last week because I want to speak to your boss. And because I got some crazy ideas, some creative ideas that I know that we can make some real money on this if you just use these steps." And I told her that. I said, "If you don't get the boss in here by the end of the week, I'm out." And that's literally the confidence that I told her, because why? I paid for this internship, right? So it didn't matter to me. I'm gonna just hop onto another one, right? So I was like, I just was stating my truth. Like, this is what I want. So, I said by Friday, I need to speak with him. And by Friday, somehow, some way, the big boss actually came in and wanted to sit and listen to what I had to say, which I was like, what? He actually came in. The guy hasn't spoke to me all week. Like,
was it a Chinese boss?
Okay. The Chinese guy, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So he sits down, he pulls me in a room, and I just basically start telling him ideas of how we can actually start leveraging all of this power that you have and really start making real money from that. And as I'm talking to the guy, right, I'm giving him all these tips and pointers and ideas and tell him a little bit more about, like, obviously I just came to the American educational system, how we can like penetrate these things. Again, this guy is directly from the government. I'm talking to him. He says, "Stop talking." He puts down his pen. He walks outside. He pulls the entire office inside with me. So there's 20 people. Now he sits back in his chair. He says, "Continue talking." Wow. And then now everyone is writing down everything that I'm saying. And at that moment in my life, I said, "Brother, this is different." I got a black brother from Detroit sitting in front of all these Chinese people. I'm sitting with this government guy. Like, this is different, right? So I'm giving my advice. I'm talking about what I'm talking about. But if you ever done work in China, you can talk. But it's all about, are you pulling in real revenue? Everyone talks the game, but are you actually? Is that wire transfer coming through? So that's what happened. After I talked, I started working for a good month. We had made $2,000. Our first round was around like $2,000, and I was just so happy because it was like $2,000. I'm like, yes, at least I can make some money. And this company hadn't made like money in 6 years. The next thing that we did, we made $30,000 for the company. My superior became my subordinate. So then we switched positions. Wow. So I had to go through that relationship because now I was telling her what to do. And then from that point, when we made 30,000, and then I was able to pocket, some cheddar from that. That is really what started my whole entrepreneurial drive, because at that point I was like, wow, I can create something of value. I can turn something, into nothing into something. And capitalize off of that. So anyway, from an entrepreneurship standpoint, from like a personal experience, that is what happened to me. And a lot of people don't know that story. That company right now making millions of dollars. Yeah, but no one would know.
Do you regret leaving?
There, that's a bit of a story. I don't know if we have time for it, but essentially what ended up happening, why I left that company. If anyone has done any work in China, same thing basically would happen to me. What happened was they were switching the new board, like for this, because obviously things were changing with the whole privatization and decentralization. So when they changed the board, the boss that pulled me in, the same guy who gave me the opportunity, actually turned his back on me because he noticed that my value was becoming greater than his. So what happens in China is when you, like, in China, it's all about like it's not about skill. It's about kind of who you know and making sure that relationship stays in place. And like, this is kind of what kind of keeps this like hierarchy thing going. Like, even if you're really good.
For that.
It's Guanxi.
Guanxi. Yeah,
Guanxi. Yeah. But I mean, I'm a kid, and I'm just coming up with these ideas and we making money. But like because then when I started noticing my own worth, then I started demanding more. Like, okay, like I don't just want to be an intern, making a couple $100 off this when I'm bringing you that. Like, I want money. I want an office. Like, I want, like, let's do some stuff. And I think that my demands were a bit threatening to them. And the actual guy who founded that company, he actually ended up leaving this company, and then we developed a relationship, and then that is when everything changed for me. That is when I essentially did the exact same thing that I brought to their company. I did it on my own. I had the network, I had the Guanxi, which is relationship. I had all of it there for me already. And then I'm just gonna say, black people need to make, ear numbers and all that. I was able to pull in $100,000 after my first year of doing that business. I'm just going to be straight with you. It was big money at the time. And as a black kid, I think I was 25 years old. I got $100K in my account. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. I keep saying that to my damn dad because, baby, we grew up in the hood, baby. I had that kind of money. I lived the life, man. I lived the life. VIP, everything, baby. Everything. Everything VIP, baby. Everything, baby. Hey, so that was the beginning for me. And this is why I push people to, if I could leave any type of message or whatever, it's really, first thing is to stand in your truth. All right. Number 2, don't let, I know it's cliche, but I can't tell you enough. Don't let nobody tell you nothing, not even your own family. Like, just do you, just do what you want to do. All of us got that inner voice in us, and we too shy to let it out because we're going to get judged, especially the black community. I think that's what holds a lot of us blacks down is us. It really is just us, But anyway, that's my little story for y'all. Yeah.
You were saying how, when you came to China, when you went to China, you were just like, it would just seem like when you went there, it was so, like the environment was so different, and it really allowed you to like thrive and flourish and everything. Is that something that you've seen with like other black expats that have come to China? Like, because you've been there, it's what, 7 years now? So you've seen quite a few people come and go.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what do you think it is about China that allows people to grow in the way that they do?
That's a great question. The first thing, I think it's a double-edged sword. China provides a very comfortable life. A very, very comfortable life at like essentially low qualifications. And I think we all know that if you just find a teaching job in China, you can have a decent life, even if you are not a teacher, right? You can come in, teach, and do your thing. And again, I keep going back to Detroit because, something really interesting happens to me when I go back home. I see we struggling, like $7 an hour, $8 an hour, people working 3 and 4 jobs. And they single and they talented, but they really, a lot of my, at least the people that I'm in touch with, they struggle. And I see that you could literally create the life that you want by just taking a chance, a chance in doing something different. And that's what I did. And, to answer your question, yes, I think that it's the comfortability, which is great. Obviously the teaching provides a lot of comfortability for blacks, but I think it's a trap because a lot of us just stay in that realm and don't actually pursue our dreams. Me, when I first came to China, I taught a lot, but I was also investing into my own business at the same time. Like it was always the next step for me. So when I do look at the general, like why people actually come to China, I think it's just, it's opportunity, you know? I think that's just really potentially why they come. And, yeah.
Could you say in one sentence or two sentences exactly what your business is for our listeners?
Yes. So I own a company called FLWO, and essentially what I do is I work with high-end Chinese companies to market their business. So we bring brands, we create iconic brands. We're working on one called She. I have another financial business called Modern Flow, which is in partnership with WeChat. I have another brand that we're working on, but this is way in the future. It's called the Echo brand that I was telling you about. And this is something that is really, really passionate for me. And I know I'm supposed to be saying this in one or two sentences, but but the one thing quickly I really want to get out there for my Black people is that, like, the time is now for us. And like what I've noticed just by traveling the world is that there is no culture like Black people. All right. There's nothing that comes close to our flow and our swag. There's nothing. I don't care what nobody say. There's nothing that comes close. And I feel like if you look at the history, our history has been buried from us. But I feel like each and one of us, we have something in us. You put a Black kid and a white kid, put on some music, they gonna move different. You know what I mean? Like they're gonna move a little different. I don't care what nobody say. They gonna move different, and there's a reason for that. You know, when you look at the history, when you look at where we are right now, why we being suppressed, I feel like there's a reason for all of that. And what I'm trying to do ultimately is change the narrative of Black people. You know, when I looked at Black Panther, I keep telling everybody, like, I don't know, it did something to me. All right. When I was able to see them Black, beautiful women stand together and support their men, and like it was vice versa, it was nothing but beauty for me. And I'm like, man, like we need to change the narrative. And right. I mean, that's what we can do through social media, through all of it, because a lot of the narrative about Black people, I think in the beginning of this podcast, you asked me, you know, like why people have this image of us. It's media. It's literally media that is crushing us, in my opinion. Y'all see what they're doing to Donald Trump, right? I mean, obviously, you know what I mean? Regardless of, you know, whatever. I'm just saying the media is very interesting in terms of like that space. And I think that is something that I would just want to be able to show us in a way better light. When I travel, my last point, the last thing I will say is when I travel to like all these different countries being Black, and this is one of the most important things that I want to tell you that I had to like say, is that sometimes people, they ask me, they say, Keith, you know, where you from? And I say, you know, I'm from America, you know, but then I have to think, well, but I'm also African American. And then as you being Black, if you say I'm American, you have much more respect. But if you say you African, you're nothing. But I'm still a Black man. So when you travel around the world, you also start to realize your place in the world, which is also very difficult, you know, and trying to figure all that out. But anyway, that's what I want to just leave y'all with. Yeah.
That's an interesting point. So are you saying that as you've been traveling as a Black man, you feel that you have a higher status as an American than an African-American, or as someone who's affiliated with Africa?
What I'm saying is that there's a real identity issue for me when someone asks me where I'm from, because originally I'm from Africa, but I really don't want to claim America because of, you know, I mean, I do, I'm American, but at the moment in time, like, you know, there's a war against Black men. We all know that there's a real war against us. And I don't know if we'll ever be able to break that cycle. And I hope we will. And I think we will break the cycle. Let me not put that hope in there. But my thing is that when you're traveling as a Black man, for an example, just 2 weeks ago, I was in Hong Kong. This happens to me. I actually wanted to start like recording this just so I can show like how it actually happens. Every time I come to Hong Kong, right? I live in Shenzhen. Every time I go to Hong Kong, I fly into Hong Kong or I'm crossing the border, I am always singled out. And always right after customs. You know what I mean? Like right when you pass customs, like these people have already, the extra checks. They still check me again, and then they say, "Let me see your passport." As soon as they look at the passport and they see it's American, keep going, buddy.
Right.
So I'm like, oh,
that is how
oh my gosh.
We were talking about that.
The same thing. Like they treat it like garlic or something.
Yeah.
So
they really do.
So that's the issue when we talk about like identity. You know, like we're us blacks in China or wherever you are in the world. It's difficult because you struggling. You are, you know, American, but you're not American because you come from Africa. You know. Anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. It was.
Has being abroad highlighted or really brought out more identity struggles for you that you weren't thinking about before?
Yes. Being abroad, yeah, I would say, again, obviously realizing your place in the world. You know, when you go to different countries, you could see clearly that the white man, you know, I call it white God complex in a lot of these Asian countries. It's just it's ridiculous. And then also for me having to just be okay with where we are, just say okay. You know what I mean? Like there's a sense of where you just got to be like, well, this is how it is. And I just don't sit well with like that. I've never been a guy who just like who sat in like just a space where I have to be like, yeah, it's okay that like, yeah, this white guy gets the teaching job over me, and maybe I'm not like, you know, like when I get on an elevator with Chinese people, even today, I still got to like, you know, okay, I'm a black guy, I don't want to scare them. Like, you know, there's already these thoughts that are already trying to protect the other when I'm questioning myself, saying, right, like why is the first thing I think about living in China protecting the other and their feelings? When, you know, not to, you know, when a white guy can walk in and just, you know, he ain't thinking about
just
nothing.
Live his life,
you know?
live his life, right? Not thinking about nothing, just living your life.
Right.
I get on the elevator, I'm walking down the street, I'm like, all right, even like now, I'm like, don't let me not wear a hoodie if it's hot, you know, it's cold outside. Like there's a lot of things that I think about, even in China, and like, you know, I mean, obviously our counterparts don't go through that. So anyway, there's a lot of identity things that I realize about living abroad as well.
I've always shared with people, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this, that like white supremacy, white privilege permeates the world. Like I think that a lot of U.S. citizens have this idea that this concept, this thought of white supremacy and white privilege is uniquely American, or perhaps uniquely American and uniquely European. But I found that such things have permeated the rest of the world. And you mentioned getting on the elevator in China. As a black man, you still have as a black person, you still have a million thoughts. Am I dressed okay? Am I making them feel uncomfortable? You know, just you're trying to check yourself to make sure you're not making the other feel uncomfortable. For me, a lot of that is a symptom of white supremacy and white privilege, like the effects that it has not only on us physically, but also mentally, psychologically.
Well, anti-blackness is global. Like that's a global thing. That's everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Even the places that don't like that, like even that don't actively lift up white people, although a lot of them are. There's just this. Anywhere you go, the darker people are always looked down on. You know what I'm saying? That's just a global thing.
But, you know, it's so interesting. Like, I really appreciate hearing the Black male experience, and particularly the Black American male experience, because this just wasn't my experience. Like, I identified, talked about at the very beginning, Keith, of, you know, people rubbing your skin or touching your hair or whatever. And having that really strong realization of, oh, this is just the media and or lack of information, but really just a kind of gentle ignorance. Maybe that's the category that I want to put it in. Like, not, is this racist, but like, is this very kindly, like, ignorant? And so, you know, when I was walking around China, I was never checking myself. I think you asked the question, LD, before of, you know, what is the benefits of being Black in China? What kind of opportunity was it? And for me, it was anonymity. I felt completely anonymous. I felt that, like, yes, eyes were on me, but also there are a billion people living here. So we're all kind of watching each other, but not watching anyone at all. And
you felt that in China?
I felt that all the time. It was freeing.
Wow.
It was so freeing. I felt like I didn't exist in a lot of ways. And, yes, I would be in the elevator and a kid would say something and sometimes the parents wouldn't do anything. And then sometimes they were like, oh, it's your mom, like that's not very polite. Or sometimes people would take pictures of me or touch my hair. But for the most part, I really felt anonymous.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
All eyes are on you, baby.
I know. Like it's.
I know that's what's so fascinating about it. It was like all eyes are on you, and yet maybe I just started to tune it out so quickly.
Well, wait, did you feel did you feel anonymous or did you feel ignored? Because those are two different things. Like, do you feel like overlooked?
I felt anonymous.
That's a good point.
I feel ignored, like at all.
So because I was gonna make the connection because you grew up in a predominantly white community. Am I right?
No.
I know. You literally.
This is getting
like so. Perhaps you're used to. This is getting like, you know what? I'm used to being around the others, so I built up this sort of.
That's because in 11th, I told you from 11th grade until college, I was in like majority white schools. Like my high school, those last 2 years, majority white, and then university, went to a PWI. But I grew up in like the blackest place in South Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah. No, in South Carolina, it's like right. So actually, my view of even my own state was really skewed because everybody around me was black and everybody was a Democrat. And and then I leave and be like, oh, there's so many white people that live here and they all are super conservative. Like, what's happening? So no, I don't know why. I really don't know why. For me, I felt so anonymous in that space, but I would be really curious to talk to other Black American women and see what their experiences were. Because when I was to Black American men, I mean, there's something about the Black male narrative that is so pervasive, and the way that it is disseminated across the world is so violent, right? We're in Black American female narrative. I mean, we're actually, we don't exist really. Like in our own culture, we don't fully exist.
Well, unless you're fetishized or sexualized or
right.
Yeah.
And so like that you will get, I feel like anywhere I've been in the world, that is always there. But other than that, there's not that much that is attached to us in our media presence externally to the internet stage. I have found in my travels and living around the world. And so perhaps that was why I felt so invisible in the good ways. I felt like a human being, like no one was really watching me.
Yeah. That's interesting. It's really interesting.
So Keith, you 7-8 years in the game. You got amazing projects going on. You got We Love She, which like if you haven't been on that website, We Love She, it's just phenomenal. I've shared that with you. Then also Flow, yeah, it's really dope, man. I really love the work that you're doing, bro. This entire week, man, leading up, to be real with you, I was sharing with people like, yo, man, we got my boy Keith coming on, and like y'all got to see what he's doing abroad. Like,
it's love,
the upliftment of Black women, bro, and it's
love.
It's really something special. But you know what's in the future? Like you said, you 7-8 years in the game. Is China it for you? Like, are you never coming back to the States?
Yeah, man, we gonna see you again.
He's announcing his citizenship.
You're right.
Trying to get the green card. What's up?
No, to be honest, man, my dream for me is two things. I really, like I said, everything that I'm doing, I said, even the things that we talked about before, everything I do is really coming back to Black, and right now, China, they have the capital, the power, in terms of the finances for me to be able to move and do that. So, I want to be able to leverage that and basically help us, at the end. And I'm really, really, really big on the narrative, man. And what I mean by narrative is the media changing, telling our stories. Like there's another thing I love about like an old little story where it goes like, I think there's this white kid, and then they're living in a house, obviously as a white family. And then the kid asks his dad, he says, "Dad, are we racist?" And the dad says, "No, we don't like black people." But the kid then says, "Well, what about Mr. Larry? Oh, he lives next door. Mr. Larry he's okay. He's okay. But all them other black people, we hate him." And that tells me there's no, they don't know us. You know what I mean? They don't know who we are. They don't know. I mean, I feel like we're the most accepting culture there is. So anyway, going back to the point, yes, my goal honestly is that's number one. And two, man, I'm looking to buy a house in Bali on the beach, and
There you go. Get paid. Go for that money, player.
that is
Go
the
for the
goal.
money.
Go back to. I mean, I love America. I love America, but that is the
Get your money, black
goal.
man.
That I'm chilling, baby. That is the whole goal for me. Yes, that is the goal. So
That's what's
yep.
up. That's so permanent. It's so permanent to think, man. There are days where I literally think about, you know what, I'm ready to go back abroad. Like people really don't understand
The opportunity.
that.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
and just
Black
the
people,
man,
if
everything that
you're
comes with it, bro.
listening, black people, if you listening, I'm telling you, stop what you doing and move, make a change. I'm telling you, like we ain't doing this podcast, you be doing this podcast. Like make some action, my dude or my woman. I ain't on this podcast. Like, I'm sitting in this hot ass room. Like, come on, I'm doing this for you, whoever listening. Make a goddamn move, boy.
Like I'm
Hey,
you.
you need help? Hit me up. Like at any time, hit me up. I'm really in the game to help us. That's why I'm doing it, man. So no, I just want to throw that out there.
You know who you sound like? You sound like Charlemagne the God, Black Privilege. I feel like you read that book.
I have not, but it sounds like I need to get on that.
I mean, maybe y'all co-wrote it. Maybe you're the ghostwriter because
I haven't read it, but I heard it was.
I like
mixed
Charlemagne.
reviews.
Spark Notes. I feel like I understand that.
I do like Charlemagne. I haven't read the book. No.
I respect him. He's from South Carolina. But no, it's really essentially about like harnessing the power of that. Like we can't really put it into words. What is it that makes us Black and what makes us strong and what makes us so connected and what makes us vibrant and powerful, but we know what that thing is, like you see the Black person walking down the street and you know what that thing is, even you can't identify it. And so he is, I think, in a similar vein of what you're talking about, Keith, is, standing in that truth of who we are as people and then going out and grabbing opportunities to live the life that you want to live.
Exactly. Yes.
But it's challenging when you don't see that. Like everybody else, you know what I'm saying? Everybody else sees that through the media, through movies, through television shows, whatever the case may be. Now through podcasts. Like whenever there's a new medium, it's just automatically dominated by white people, particularly white men. And it's the same thing with podcasting, right? And so like what you're doing, Keith, and like what we're doing with this podcast, man, it's like, listen, there are so many powerful Black narratives and images that exist, even, yes, in the U.S., but also beyond the U.S. Like, how do we, share with that real quick, because like, how do you plan on sharing what you're doing in China with Black people in Africa, Black people in the U.S.? Like, how do you plan to like deliver your message, get your message out there? We're here to help, bro. We're here to help.
Yeah, dude, I'm loving it because I mean, for me, as you guys know, I operate this group called She. Essentially, what it is, it's really to uplift artistic women and really put them in a place where they can pursue their creative truth. Like not just, oh, I'm a painter, but actually give you the tools, give you the knowledge on the business end of things to actually make whatever you want to do possible. Because I spent 7 years on both sides, being a designer, being an artistic guy, and also knowing how to run real business. I want to take that knowledge and give it to these women that we're doing it right now. Another interesting thing that we do in our events, which a lot of people are vibing with, is that in our events, man, it's very deep. We have women crying. We look to strip back the layers and layers and layers of judgment and stereotypes or whatever, and just get down to the real you. And then once we find that real you, that seed, that you just stripped everything off, that actual seed, we look to help you grow that seed into who you truly are supposed to become, because the world has told you no. The world has shaped you into what what essentially what you think you're supposed to be like, and it's all wrong. It's all wrong for me at the end of the day. That's why people are dealing with depression and anxiety. Like, these mental health cases are up and through the roof. There's a reason for that. So to answer the question about how am I actually trying to do this, again, it's through things like this. Information is very important. I feel like we have such a lack of information. Like, even this story, who knows, my story could potentially change someone's life. Like I said, the reason why I keep mentioning Detroit is because I come from the hood. But I'm telling you, I keep saying that, baby. I can't, I'm talking about, like, drug house at the end of the block. You know what I'm saying? Like, drug guy used to buy me ice cream all the time. Mama used to whip my ass because he was a drug man. But I was like, yo, you give me ice cream, Mama. Like, whatever. We got a relationship, But what I'm saying is that, like, I've been in that situation, yeah. And I just and trying to send that message through mediums like this is one avenue. Another thing, like I said, is I want people to feel Black people. What we do at She is that it's a very, like, when we do our events, it's never about, like, the people who are hosting it, but it's about the audience themselves. I see the strong impact that we have on these women, and I want us Black people to do something like that in a physical form as well as on a media form, so you can see and feel who we are. Going back to my story about Mr. Larry, the little kid asked Dad, why you don't like Mr. Larry? Oh, Mr. Larry, he's good. He's a good guy. He's Black. Mr. Larry's Black. But why are we racist? It's everybody else that we don't like. It's such a ridiculous thing, and I'm looking to completely change that, man. So yeah, man.
That's what's up, man. That is a very, very admirable endeavor, and it's needed. Like, the more the merrier at this point.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Like,
and I'm happy to see that you're doing that in Asia. We're there, but not as many there. So it's really important that we are also the ones who are a part of controlling the narrative that we've created and that is being created.
I mean, I think in today's society, what else do we have at the moment, right? All eyes are on social media. All right, I'm in branding, so I pay attention also, obviously, to the eye count of everything. So if we don't control that, we don't have more Black Panther movies. If we don't have more, I'm not saying we necessarily need another Martin Luther King or another Malcolm X or something like that, because I mean, it'll be great to have that, but we need a real movement, and we need to connect. I mean, the whole Nipsey Hussle deal, I didn't even know who Nipsey was until he died.
Me too, bro.
Me too. What he was doing, I'm like, what?
Go ahead. Apparently he was doing work in these streets. I mean, he was mostly a West Coast dude.
I watched the funeral and was crying. I thought, okay, I didn't even know this person, but I'm so inspired by just the realness of the life that he lived.
Yeah, they have murals of that guy all over LA. Like, I went to LA once, and, like, they're everywhere. Like, they really love this guy.
He was doing big work in the community, man. It was really, like, inspiring to, like, learn his story and learn his approach, like how he obviously was doing the music thing, but he was very much about community, of empowering his community and using his art to do so. Similar to what you're doing, bro, with She and Flow, like using your art, using your platform to impact your people, to uplift your people, and provide opportunities for your people in different spaces, right? That are, we're traditionally sort of blocked from.
I will say that's something that I really love about Black people, and I don't think it's just a Black American thing. Because even as a Nigerian, I remember as a kid I was so frustrated with my parents because one day I'd come home from school and suddenly there was someone who they'd, like, taken in to come live in my room for 5 months, or all the money from their paycheck was going back to their community back home. And something that I just really, really love about Black people is that I think for a lot of us, no matter what it is that we're doing, we're trying to figure out how to give it back to us.
Yeah, very true.
How to bring it back. How to bring everybody up. along the way, really. And I love that, you've even gone far across the world where there are not that many of us. So that pressure actually, in terms of like head count, is not that strong.
Yeah.
You feel so pulled to it. And you're doing it in ways that are really authentic to you and authentic to the work that you do. And I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's difficult, obviously, I would love a team, but I feel like, I think, it's difficult to find people like me or like yourself, not like me, but like yourself, when you see a vision, you have something and you really want to go towards it. I'm 100% full steam at this. This is no game for me. This is no joke because, also being abroad and looking, at the news every day, that's another very, very touchy topic. You know what I mean? Of like, what can we do? I feel like I ain't even home to do anything. We just looking back from across the world and just keep living our own lives. But yeah.
We've definitely all been there.
Oh, wow. That got somber really quick.
It's like, well, I'm going to go back to my house in Bali.
Yeah, right.
Got a little heavy.
Shit in Detroit.
Yeah.
No. Keith, thank you so much.
Yeah, bro. Appreciate you being on.
But man. Where can we find you, man?
Yeah.
Yo.
Where can we find this work?
Yo. So, I'm kind of like a little antisocial, which is weird because I'm in branding and that's what I preach and all that. But
that's kind of your job, player.
I know.
I mean, I know, guys. When you're on a mission, you don't need no distractions, baby. You know what I mean? So that's how I live my life now.
I feel you.
No, I'm on Facebook, Keith Bartlett. KeithBartlatt. You can always check out my website, flwo.io. Check out, my little flow on that page. And that's it. I don't really do the Insta or anything, Twitter. I don't do any of that. I kind of, I enjoy my time walking on the beach. That's essentially what I do.
That's locked in China. So you're on WeChat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm on WeChat. Should I drop a handle there? A WeChat handle? I don't know if that's appropriate. All right. Yeah. WeChat. It's called Myoki11. EMYOKI11. Myoki. Again, don't ask me about the username. I was young. So, yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much, brother. We really appreciate
I've enjoyed it.
All your work.
Yes.
And good luck to you. Keep on keeping on.
Absolutely love it, guys. Absolutely love it. Yep.
Absolutely, bro.
Thank you for having me.
Good luck with everything, man. Keep us updated on the movement. Reach out anytime, bro. We love to have you on.
Sounds good, man. I'm looking forward to seeing more from you guys. I'm really looking forward to seeing more from this platform because I can't wait to get back on and listen to other people's stories. So again, thank you so much for having me on. And let's kick it, baby. Let's do it.
Bro.
Peace.
All right, Keith, bro. Good luck.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Yeah.